presentation, and we'll do that. Woohoo, there we go. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Rosenthal, and I am a park naturalist here at Gulf Branch Nature Center. And we're going to talk about some little itty bitty noisemakers that make some pretty big sounds. I'm going to do kind of an intro to these guys leading up to the actual talk about the cricket crawl prep. So if you just called to know what you have to do on the, or if you just joined to know what you have to do on the cricket crawl prep, you could stare off into space for 15-20 minutes. I'll get to it, but I want to talk a little bit about these groups and how they make the noises and why that making those noises is so important. And that's where I'm going to start. The big question is, is it safe to sing? You'll notice that a lot of the guys we're talking about. Oops, can somebody pop their microphone off for me? Thank you, thank you. You know, that we're going out at night to listen to these gentlemen sing, and it is the males that are doing the singing. And the question is it safe to sing? And you know, if you're singing out, oops, here, let me try this. There we go. If you're singing at night, you're trying not to be noticed, which can be a double-edged sword because you're in the dark and you're hoping no one sees you. You're just still making a really, really loud noise because you're trying to attract, ideally, a mate. You're not necessarily trying to attract someone that's going to eat you. So making a lot of noise when you're trying to conceal yourself seems counterintuitive, but this is how these organisms attract mates. So you've got to find that special someone, and different groups do it. Why did that happen? Are you guys seeing, can someone unmic and let me know that you're seeing the PowerPoint?
And this is Anna. We were seeing the PowerPoint and then it just flipped back to you.
All right. Let's try this again. Share the screen. Whoops. So I got this little dialog box that keeps getting in my way. And there we go. Sorry about that, folks. But the good news is that'll be on the recording. So you need to find that special someone, and different organisms do it in different ways, attracting a mate or, you know, getting a mate's attention. Obviously, one way to do that is by looking good. And there's different ways to do it. And you know, you can draw all the analogies you want to the human species and how we do it. In nature, you will see there's sexual dimorphism, where typically it's the males that are brighter and are able to attract more attention, and that's how they find a mate. Oftentimes, it also involves some kind of display. This is a peacock fly. This little guy had landed on my car and was seemed to be really trying to get my attention. I know the show wasn't for me, but I was very flattered nonetheless. And then this is a peacock jumping spider, which is just a beautiful little critter. And there's a lot of really good photos of those online. I highly recommend checking them out. But we're not interested in looking good this evening. We're also not interested in smelling good, but this is another method of getting your mate's attention. And oftentimes the species that use pheromones and scents to attract, you can find mechanisms or adaptations that can really help you detect your mate from a potential mate from a long distance away. Moths do this very well. The female will hang on the side of a building and release pheromones. I remember seeing this moth and thinking this is really neat. And there was this other moth flying around it, and I was just annoyed because I was trying to get this picture, and it didn't occur to me till later that the smaller moth was actually the male who had been attracted in by the female, and she was actually releasing pheromones here for the male to find her. So what she's doing is hoping her evening will end like this. And that's the male down below her there. And of course, what we're going to talk about tonight is sounding good, making noise to attract a mate and to find them. And I've always wondered, and I don't actually answer this in this presentation, but it's something that always strikes me as when you've got a frog chorus or a cricket chorus or a katydid chorus, there's so many noises, and I've always wondered how they can, you know, find an individual in there, or if it would be similar to what we would do when you walk into a room and everybody starts shouting at you, you're going to end up picking someone at random, and if that chorus just gets you there or not. And obviously, if it's an individual, that singing does much better. Birds do singing. Males and females both can vocalize, but it's the males that make, typically it's the males that make the calls to attract females. In frogs and toads, it's just the males that make noise and they do the calling, and they have a release call if a male makes a mistake. And then this is a cicada. We won't be looking for cicadas as part of the cricket crawl, but I'm going to talk a little bit about them as well. So when you need to find that special someone, you can try sounding good. So these are, and there are other ways of attracting mates, but these are three of the basic ones. And again, we're going to focus on some of these insects that sound good. So we are looking at, I like to narrow down our group a little bit to give everybody a sense of place. And we are talking about animals. We're going to look at invertebrates who have, are arthropods, which means they have exoskeletons, which includes a lot of critters, but we're going to get rid of all these guys that don't have 6 legs, because we're going to be talking about insects. And in particular, we're going to talk about orthopterans. These are crickets, katydids, grasshoppers, and I'm also going to mention hemipterans, so I'm not going to focus on them because they're not part of the survey. I'll talk a little bit about them and how they make their noise. So how do they do it? That's to me, this is a really neat question, and there's some amazing adaptations that these insects utilize. So we're going to start with the cicadas, get these guys out of the way, because they're day singers, and that's not who we're looking for at night. This, I guess it would be an organ. This object here is called a timbal, and it's rib-shaped, and it's a plate, and there's actually muscles inside, and the muscles are attached to the inside of the timbal, and they're kind of on a Y shape. So when one pulls, the other is at rest, and so they go back and forth. And essentially, if you could imagine, if I had a cymbal on each hand and I just did this, the cymbals are going to make noise. And so when they pull in the timbal and release, it makes a noise. And they do this rapidly. If you've ever heard cicadas, they can make quite a racket. And so this is actually, you can see this is dark with orange wings and a reddish eye. This is actually one of the periodical cicadas, which come out every 13 to 17 years, depending on the brood. But we have several species that you'll see here. I'm actually going to play this out loud. I hope everybody can hear this. I've got a boom box. I'm going to go old school here.
Scissor grinder cicada, Tabison pruinosa.
You can hear with that scissor grinder, it's not that long, steady noise. It goes in and out, and it sounds like somebody's taking scissors on a grinder, you know, going back and forth, and that's how they got that name. And then the swamp cicada, these are two pretty common ones. I hear the scissors grinder here all the time, and swamp cicada is some I've heard. And this picture is actually from Occoquan down in Woodbridge.
Swamp cicada, Tabison chloramira. 2 songs of a warm male, followed by 1 song of a colder male.
So if you get into cicadas during the day, you know, there's the duration, there's how it begins, how it ends, there's what happens in the middle of the call. So those are all different kinds of noises. So those are 2 species you can find around here. And I believe that the names I have are up to date. This CD I'm using is from a book that was published like 14 years ago, and I think there have been changes to the nomenclature. And so I believe that the names I have on this slide are accurate. And oh, don't forget, coming soon, next year, we're going to get our periodical cicadas. This is, I think, the last noise I'm going to play off the boombox here. Oh.
Linnaeus 17-year cicada, Magis cicada septem decim. Listen for the female's wing flicks in response to the male's song. This is followed by courtship song. And finally, the marvelous droning chorus of a woodland full of these magnificent cicadas.
These noises are fantastic. I think we're good on those. So these are the cicadas, and we are in the range of the brood that will emerge next year. But let's get to, oh, and one more note before we get to the critters we're talking about tonight. Crepitation. This is a Carolina grasshopper. I was just up on Sugarloaf yesterday with my daughter and saw several of these. These are the grasshoppers that are really big, and you'd be walking along, like say you're walking on a dirt road, and all of a sudden they fly up in front of you, and there's a big flash of color like this, and then they land and they disappear. They're obviously very cryptically colored. They're very well camouflaged. Then they pop up in the air, and this color is meant to startle you. And the other thing they do is they also can crack their wings. They can make a cracking sound with their wings, which is called crepitation. And that's another thing that is meant to deter predators or shock and surprise predators. But I think it also has a role in their mating displays as well. So this is crepitation. And again, we won't be dealing with this tonight, but I thought it was a really interesting adaptation, another kind of way that these critters make some noise. So stridulation is what we'll be talking about tonight, and this is essentially the base definition is two body parts rubbing them together to make noise. They're little critters. They make really big noise. I think most people are familiar with the fall field cricket, and this is a snowy tree cricket. I'm not going to play them sounds. I got more sounds later. What they're doing is they're rubbing the base of their wings together. So this right here is called a scraper. This is at one base, and this is the file at the other. And you can see this is ridge, almost looks like the teeth on a saw. Okay, you can do something very similar by taking your thumbnail, running it down the tines on a comb. But imagine doing it so many times faster than we can. I've got a video here, I think is the next one, yeah. And there you go. And this is, I'm going to show you a nice slow-mo what it looks like when these guys make these noises. Here's how they're producing, and they're rubbing at the base of their wings. So this is a really good show of what they're doing. So you can see those parts are moving super fast. So you could take your thumb down that comb, like I suggested, but getting to the point where you can move it as fast as that katydid is probably not possible. It's amazing how quickly they move and how much movement goes into making that noise, which doesn't sound at all like a zzz, 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 but it happens so fast, it's almost an instantaneous sound. Some of the critters, I showed you the field cricket and the snowy tree cricket earlier. The snowy tree cricket was often used, or was shown that you can mathematically divine the temperature by counting the number of times the cricket chirps in 1 minute. Subtract by 40, divide by 4, add 50, and you get the temperature in Fahrenheit, which sounds great. And the reason you can do that with the snowy tree cricket is it's pretty consistent at different temperatures in how it chirps. It's not something you could do with the fall field cricket, because if they're older or if they've already mated, they may not chirp at the same rate they would if they haven't mated or if they were younger. There's studies that have shown that effort is actually important with fall field crickets, and so if they do, if they put more effort, they're more likely to impress a female, and it's often the older crickets that will put in more effort to their song. This was, as you can see, it's got Dolbear's name on it. And this was this was devised by I think it's Amos Dolbear in 1897. Unfortunately, Margaret W. Brooks did it 16 years earlier, but her paper was largely ignored. It wasn't really noticed until his paper came out, and his name happens to be on the law. So I want to make sure that both of these scientists get credit for coming up with this idea. There was an episode, I like the Big Bang Theory, it was one of my favorite shows, and there was an episode in one season where two of the characters get in an argument about the type of cricket that's hiding in their office, and they go to an entomologist to get an idea, and they're arguing over which cricket it was, and I forget if they got it right in the episode or not, but it is the snowy tree cricket that typically is what's used to make the calculation for temperature, but you can modify the equation for field crickets and still get pretty close to temperature. And you can also try with common true katydids as well. And we'll talk about them in a little bit because they're one of our target species. Excuse me. I want to make a note of these two critters here. The one on the left is a lesser water boatman. This is considered the loudest animal in the animal kingdom, and it's considered that because it makes a very loud noise using stridulation, but it does it underwater. So if you're walking by the shadows of a pond, you might hear it, but it's really loud underwater. And for the size of the insect, that's how it gets that recognition. And now the amusing thing about this is it uses its penis and rubs it against, trying to remember, corrugations on its abdomen. And so in the Guinness Book of World Records, it's in there for the loudest penis. But they can produce a sound up to 99.2 decibels, which is comparable to the sound of a passing freight train. So they're very, very loud. There are, I think, cicadas that have gotten into the 90 decibels. I always read that in articles. They're like, cicadas can reach 90 decibels. In Australia, I don't believe there's any in North America that get that close to being that loud. But there are some, I think it's Australia, it might be Africa, but I'm pretty sure it's Australia, where they're loud enough that they could do damage to your eardrum. Again, in the 90s. And obviously this one could too, but you're never going to hear probably that loud a noise because it's underwater. And then this moth on the right is another moth where the males stridulate by rubbing their genitalia against plates on their body segments to make noise. And they produce ultrasonic sounds when they do that, and that's how they attract females. So for what it's worth. But stridulation usually involves legs, wings, and body segments. There are snakes that actually use stridulation. There are some saw-scale vipers that make their body into this C shape, and they'll rub the two sections of their body against each other, and they can make a noise to warn away, I think, potential predators, which is fantastic. I never thought of snakes making any kind of noise like that. And in case you're wondering how they hear, their ear is right there on their elbow. I always like to point this out to kids and be like, you know, if you just wanted to not listen to your parents, you could just do this. Pretend you're listening, but you got your hands over your elbows. But this is where their ear is located, where they're receiving that sound and hearing either what the other males are doing or the females that are listening for the males. So how can I help? We're going to get into the cricket crawl piece of it now. The Washington, D.C., Baltimore, they don't have the NOVA part up there still on the page, but it does include Northern Virginia. The Washington, D.C., Baltimore cricket crawl is a citizen science project that we're going to talk about. They do have a website here, the discoverlife.org /cricket /DC / this is the species list page. Essentially, if you Google cricket crawl, this should be the first page that comes up if you just want to type in something really quick. Everything I'm going to go over is on there as well. They've got the cricket sounds.
Hey Ken,
yeah?
This is Anna. May I add something really quickly?
Sure.
Real quick. I've been talking with Kathy Strager, who's the point of contact for the crawl, and okay. We've been working with them. The downloadable data form, that link that you see there, does work. However, currently the little thing that says instructions does not work, and they're working on that. So people shouldn't be dismayed, like if they can't get that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
I did notice there was a couple, and I don't know and I'm not throwing shade at them. I don't know the last time they really worked on the website. I noticed there weren't a couple links working that I checked earlier in the day. But the sounds are there and the different organisms are there. So if I go over anything too quickly, by all means, please You're always welcome to email and ask me questions. This is being recorded, so it'll be posted on YouTube. I hope to do that quickly since the crawl is this Friday. But certainly this is a great website. There are emails on the website that you can email Kathy Strager or Sam Drogi or Jen Souls also has done this before, and she's a good resource as well. So there's lots of places to go if you have questions. I had downloaded the data form and planned on including that in the email I send out to everybody. I always send a post email out with a link to the recording as well as a survey link, and I was going to include that in there as well if anybody needed it. But thank you, Anna. So these are the cricket things. So I wanted to do a little who, what, and why here. So, oops, I went off the. Let's get back here. There you go. The who. These are the three sponsors: DiscoverLife.org, the Audubon Natural Society, and the Natural History Society of Maryland are all sponsoring this. And what are they sponsoring? This is an annual citizen science project to assess cricket and katydid populations of the DC, Baltimore, and Northern Virginia metro areas. So pretty much Northern Virginia, all of DC, and the Baltimore metro areas. So it's a pretty big area, and this is, the more the people contribute, the more information they're going to get. They've been doing this since 2012, I believe, because I think this is the 9th year. And I've done it for a couple of years. It's fun. It's just, it's a good reason to get out, not be connected to your cell phone or any other kind of device. Just get out there and listen and hear, and you'll be surprised at what you do here. Because I think most of us hear the common true katydid, which I'll get to, but some of the other ones will surprise you when they pop up when you realize, hey, I've been hearing that and I didn't know what it was. And again, I already went over where, but you see the Baltimore metro area, DC metro area, Northern Virginia, all this area in between, I believe. So, this is a pretty good hunk of the region that can contribute to this citizen science project. There we go. When? August 21st. Oh, I didn't write the rain date down. August 21st is Friday. Anytime after 8 p.m., 8:15 p.m., you want to make sure the temperature's still above 60 degrees. I don't know if they stop calling or if they call slower, it'll be harder. But obviously you want to make sure that temperature is still above 60 degrees. You're going to get the best results as far as hearing these insects. Saturday's the rain date, so the 22nd. So it's the day after is the rain date. I believe right now the forecast looks pretty good. Although I did learn from one of my young program attendees who came because they missed my cancellation email on Saturday. A forecast is not a promise. So, but hopefully the forecast will stay good for us and we'll be able to do this Friday night. Why? This is, if you'll remember, this is that lesser water boatman. What's interesting is, and I run into this all the time with insects, and I think sometimes if you're not interested in insects or invertebrates, you may not notice this as much. You can go on Wikipedia and you can find pages about chickens and frogs and dogs and snakes and alligators. With a lot of insects, a lot of invertebrates, there are, and this is actually true for some amphibians and reptiles as well, but for a lot of these critters, especially these smaller ones, these invertebrates, there's not a lot known. We might know one or two things. Some are very well studied and very well understood. Some are like, here's a picture. That's what we know about it. Or we know that it's got the loudest penis, as was mentioned earlier. But we don't know a lot about its habitats. We know it lives on the edges of ponds in Australia, and that's it. So finding out or learning more about these critters, either there's not a research reason or somebody just hasn't observed them. And so, you might find this Wikipedia page, like for this guy, where it's really, really loud, and that's all we know. So why do you do something like this cricket crawl? Well, we don't know if cricket populations and katydid populations are going up or going down. And in order to do that, you need to get a baseline. So I always tell people, it's, like when I was a kid, I used to hear this one frog, and I used to hear tons of this frog all the time in this area. And then I go back as an adult, and I hear one or I hear none. That doesn't mean it's a reason to freak out about the frogs. It could be that the frogs are gone because somebody built a shopping mall there. It could be that it's a down year for the frogs. It could be a lot of different things. It could be that you expect to hear them and you're not actually there at the right time. But and I get this question almost every year from somebody. Hey, the hummingbirds aren't at my bird feeders this year. Hey, these birds aren't my bird feeders this year. Hey, I haven't seen as many deer this year. I haven't seen as many raccoons, or where are the butterflies? There are seasonal fluctuations in population. Like, this is really not a great year for butterflies. It's not a horrible thing, but it's more of it was the weather than it was something human made, I think. But having a baseline makes it easier for us to look at these numbers over time and understand more about these populations. So getting a lot of people out at this time in August to listen for these insects starts to develop a data set of where these insects are, where they're being heard, and it's really important. You got to start somewhere, and so this is a nice piece because again, it involves the general public, which I think is great. So how do you do the count? Go somewhere at night. That's the tough part. And again, you can do this in your backyard. You can do this at well, the one part I did see some emails go back and forth in I've got people walking by waving to me in our Arlington Master Naturalist email that there were some things about go to a park at night and do this. Arlington parks are technically closed after dark. If you're going to survey a park, find out if it's open before you go into that park at night, because it may not be open after sunset, the grounds, and I don't want anybody getting in trouble doing this. I know certainly the organizers don't either. But if it's a park where you can drive up and sit, park your car and sit there and listen for a minute, great. What I don't have in here, but I will say this, if you go somewhere, if it's a place you need to walk to get to, or you're like, I'm going to jog tonight because I jog at 8 o'clock every night, and then I'll just stop at 8:15 and listen, or you ride your bike, give yourself a couple minutes to catch your breath, let your heart rate slow down so you're hearing everything properly. I would do that regardless, even if it's just you go out in your backyard, sit on the porch, wait a couple minutes before you do your 1 minute listening to make sure that everything is grown accustomed to your presence, because you do affect what's going on simply by being there. So, give everything a chance to resettle, especially if you come into the area and everything gets really quiet, and that will help make sure that you get really good results. I'm going to show you the data form at the end. It has all 6 crickets and katydid species that they're looking for. There are many, many more species than these 6. These are just the 6 target ones they have that they're surveying for. And then call, text, email, or tweet it to them. And that information is on the data form as well, and I believe it's also on the website. But they want it like right away. They don't want you to sit on the data and wait 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 weeks. They like the data immediately. They that night, I believe they spent a lot of time building the map, and so you can watch in real time as the data comes in and see where things are being seen, and it's really neat. It's a neat aspect to this citizen science project. So we'll be listening for 6 species, 2 crickets and 4 katydids. I think they're coming up next. Okay, I do want to say one thing, and this is not me discriminating on anybody by age, but hearing tends to lose our hearing as we get older tends to lose its ability to hear on the edges, and so some of these might be too high, and you may actually not hear them. If you don't hear one of the species as I play them, I'll go through the 6 here in a second. If you don't hear one, ask me at the end of the program. I'll go back and we'll try to play it again and see if you can hear it. If you're not hearing it, it might work better to go directly to the website and try the sounds there. Sometimes you just won't hear them. One of my friends is a few years older than me, and I know that when we go birding, he's starting to miss certain species that he doesn't hear them like he used to, and it's the really high pitched ones. So this can happen. It's still, I think, helpful if you can go out and you can identify 3, 4, or 5, still hear 3, 4, or 5 of the species, and you're able to still go out and do that. That certainly helps. So I don't want you to be deterred from that, but there might be. I want to make sure I said that before we started, so if anybody's like, I don't hear anything, some of these are high-pitched and they can be difficult to hear. So we're going to start with the jumping bush cricket, this little guy here, and I have the sounds built right in, so I shouldn't have to play with my boom box, I hope. So I'm going to play this first sound, and if somebody can just unmute after I play it and let me know if it played, that's all I'm asking for. So here we go. I think that's it. Was everybody able to hear that, or did it at least play? Did anybody hear it?
Nope, did not hear it.
No, huh? All right. Good thing I wrote these numbers down. Let me see here.
We didn't hear it. I kind of heard it.
What's that?
I kind of heard it a bit.
All right. Well, let me see. I'm going to try to play it off the CD here.
It was very, very, very quiet.
Jumping bush cricket, Orocharis saltator.
Did that work better?
Yep.
Yes.
Wait. Okay. So you can hear, it's not a very fast call. It almost feels, especially when you hear, oh, you know, the next one's the only one I don't have on the CD. Especially when you hear the, who's next here? Yeah, the Japanese burrowing cricket. When we get to them, theirs is a very rapid, and so the difference between these two is really that speed. And hopefully, I would recommend if you can find a recording of the fall field cricket, listen to that one too to make sure you're not. The fall field cricket.
Welcome, friends, to the songs of underappreciated.
Yes.
Deletus.
Just that constant deep. Whereas the jumping cricket,
bush cricket,
jumping bush cricket,
Orocharis saltator.
much longer pulse, and then there's a pause. So hopefully you shouldn't have too much difficulty getting the much slower guy and the Japanese burrowing cricket, which is faster. The difference between them and the field cricket. I'm going to play the Japanese burrowing cricket. I don't have a backup for it because the CD doesn't have it. It's an introduced species. You probably can tell by the name. But I'm going to go ahead and play that one now. And hopefully, I think it's a little louder. Maybe it'll come through better. Let's see any. I think I got my volume maxed out. Ooh, it's a long one. So it just stopped, but it's at it keeps going and it's really rapid. If you're out in the field, you'll hear the difference pretty quickly if this one's nearby you. So that's the Japanese burrowing cricket. If you couldn't hear that, definitely check out the website. Like I said, they've got the sounds there. We're going to move on to the 4 katydids. Whoops. Go ahead.
It didn't play.
It didn't play at all?
No, I didn't hear it.
So I just sat there staring at just sillily for 30 seconds. Sorry. Yeah, definitely check that one out on the website. I don't know why I've got these embedded in the program, so I'm not even going to try to play them on the PowerPoint anymore. I'm just going to play them from the CD, which is why I've got these fancy numbers there. So this is the common true katydid. This is the one that goes katydid, katydid, katydid. A little bit faster, but it's the one I'm sure most people are very familiar with.
Common true katydid, Pterophylla, camellifolia. The northern race, followed by the southeastern race, followed by a pulsating chorus.
That 3-note pulse. Very loud. And there's a big chorus of these guys. I don't know where they got this recording, but it's fantastic. What's that? So katydid. This is, I think this is probably of the 6 that we've got, this is the one you're going to be most familiar with. And I think this is the one that most likely people will be checking off more than any on the data sheet. Because it's pretty common. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'll go out and hear them after we're done here. And I would recommend if you're hearing these, great, cool. If not, definitely get back on the website and check it out. But go ahead and try this outside afterwards tonight. If I think it's going to be above 60 degrees, and go out in your backyard and just do a practice run and see how these sound. The next, and then this is the greater Anglewing. This is 48. All right.
Greater Anglewing, Microcentrum rhombifolium. 2 males, one giving zit calls, the other giving tick calls.
I don't know if you can hear it. It's a single note, and then there's that ticking. I want that tick. I don't know that I ever hear the zit very much. Zit, zit. Maybe I've heard that once or twice. I hear the ticking a lot. I think these guys are not super common, but they're, you know, you'll definitely find them around here. And to me, that ticking always sounds like the starter on an electric stove. Tick, 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 tick before the flame catches. So the one I think you're going to be most likely to hear if you're out listening. So that's the greater Anglewing. And lesser Anglewing is next one. This is an easy one. Oh. This is one that I think can be difficult to hear because it's not as robust a call, but I think it's if I remember correctly, it's a 3-tone pulse.
Lesser Anglewing, Microcentrum retinerve.
Right there, right there, right there. And you can hear there's often a pause, like it'll do it a couple times, and then there's a pause before it does it again. And it's not as, again, it's not as robust, it's not as loud as the common true katydid, but it does have that, it's either 3 or 4 note pulse that really sticks out there. I feel like it's almost more furtive as a sound than it is robust. Like the common true katydid is just like, I'm here! And the lesser Anglewing is like, I'm here too. I'm here too. And that's without anthropomorphizing too much. That's how they come across to me. And then our final critter is Oblong-winged Katydid. Back to
Oblong-winged Katydid, Amblycorypha, oblongifolia.
That's it. Another very understated call. One more. There you go. And this is it. These are the 6 species that you're looking for. Again, I can come back to them. I'd be happy to play them again if anybody's interested. I want to get to show you the data sheet. So this is the data sheet. It's available, I think it was in rich text format for download, which is nice because you could just write right in it and email it back to them. Up at the top, they got a phone call. You can call or text them, let them know what you found. Or you can email them at speciesobs@gmail.com with the form and let them know. So, and again, you can see, this is it. It's very simple. Did you hear it? Yes or no? You check it, yes, or you don't check it because you didn't see it. I like the gear list. Supply of forms, pencil, watch, cell phone, flashlight, friends, sense of adventure. And if you don't hear anything, mark that as well. Okay. 0 or the absence of crickets and katydids, or at least the ones we're looking for, is still a data point. Okay, and they are looking for, you know, if you got a story or you have a picture of you and your friends or your family doing some cricket crawl listening, you know, send that to them as well. Okay, so again, the right here, up here on the line under the title, listen for 1 minute, record your data, and then call, text, or email it to us. Okay, I think the CD I'm using is from this book. The book is out of print. I checked Amazon this morning. The book is fairly cheap. I've seen it for $2 and $6. My guess is that's probably the book without the CD. You want to make sure your book has the CD. But what I like about the book, in fact, my book is beaten down to the point where the binding's coming apart and it's going to end up living in a Ziploc bag pretty soon. I hope I got this in the right spot. But each page, there's a page on the species, a nice big full color photo and a nice page with information on the species. Sometimes it's more about what their call is than anything else. But it has, with the exception of the Japanese burrowing cricket, it has all of our species in it. Here's the greater Anglewing. And it's got range maps to let you know if what you're hearing is actually here or not. It's a fantastic book, and I've enjoyed it. I've had it for several years. It came out, it was published like 2006. So it's about 15 years old, but it still holds up quite well. That was my next to last slide. So I want to pop out here, get my face back up here so I can see me. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything I can play again for somebody? If somebody didn't get the one of the sounds, happy to go back and try it again. I always want to say at the end when nobody wants to ask a question, I'm like, I try to do a good job, but I don't know I did that good a job. But is there any other questions or any comments about the cricket crawl that I can help anybody with?
Hey, Ken, this is Anna again.
Sure.
Stella sends her regards. She wasn't able to get in, unfortunately, but I told her I took notes and you'll be recording. She just wanted to remind you, we're with Capital Nature, a local nonprofit. We're actually going to do a newsletter story on the cricket crawl this month or next month. And so she said, remind them to take pictures. And so you already did that. So we'll reach out to Kathy. And if anybody sends any fun pictures with their family, like we're going to ask permission to feature maybe some folks, doing it and stuff like that in the field.
Very good. Sounds like a plan. Okay. Well, I won't keep you all here. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to let you go. Or if anybody wants to hang on, and ask me about one of those sounds, I'm happy to. Again, they're all on the website, so I appreciate seeing everybody's initials at least tonight. Thanks for coming out and joining me, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you for